Welcome to RayPresents, fresh off the Olympics. Today's guest is someone many of us grew up watching, one of the most recognizable faces in Canadian sports media, Cabbie Richards. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Very generous intro. I appreciate that. Obviously, you got the e-transfer, so I'm glad that we are rolling on all cylinders.
Hey, man, that brown envelope was supposed to be between you and I. What's going on?
I'm well, bro. I'm well. And you?
Hey, man, I'm doing very good now that you're here. You know, I was telling my wife a couple of days ago that there's a few Canadian legends that, inspired my journey when it comes to studying journalism years ago when I was in college. And there was Michael Jean, the Honorable Michael Jean. There was Master T, right? There's George Strombolopoulos.
Yeah.
And there's you. This is my Fab Five. You know what I mean?
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Yeah. So, and obviously I forgot Malik Shahid as well in Montreal.
Yes, Malik Shahid. That's right. Music Plus.
Music Plus. That's right. Yeah. So, I had the chance to have a conversation with Malik Shahid, Michael Jean. And now I have you here. So it's a great day.
Thanks, man. Well, thanks for the invitation. It's nice to speak with you. And it's, an honor to be mentioned with those names in that sentence.
Yes, sir. Listen, you're fresh off the Olympics. I know you have a lot of moments in your journey in the industry. What was it like, with the Olympics? Is it just another event for you? Something that's major?
It's major. It's my first time covering the Winter Games. I was in Italy. I was in a small mountain village called Livigno, which I think the population is 7,000. I think it ballooned maybe 3x during those 3 weeks while we were there. To put it in a Quebec context, it's kind of like Mont Tremblant, but just like wider, and the mountains are taller. We were at elevation was like 1,800 meters. So for a chubby bastard like myself, there were times I'm walking around, I'm like, oh boy, I mean, geez, Louise, like, is it, am I really that out of shape? Yes. But also the air is a little bit thinner. But being in Livigno was almost magical because you had these beautiful mountain vistas. There were, I want to say 6 or 7 disciplines in this area. So there's half pipe, there's snowboard cross, there's slope style, there's, slalom for the snowboarders, big air, moguls, and aerial. So you could walk from the slope style course to where the moguls were taking place in about 35 minutes, 40 minutes. So you can move around, and obviously by car it would take like maybe 7 minutes, but having everything so condensed in this small space really made it feel like the Olympics, and the branding was all over the place. There's so many international travelers and fans and family members that were in attendance supporting their athletes and their loved ones. It was much different from what I heard from Beijing, because Beijing in 2022 was during COVID. So athletes were like sequestered, and there were checkpoints all over the place, like security and just health protocols. But this one in Italy, thank God, the pandemic is behind us. And for the athletes, I know it was very special to have their families, their parents, their brothers, sisters, whatever, in attendance to watch them compete. And as far as like the coolest moment for me was I got to there's a snowboarder named Megan Oldham who competed in big air, and she won gold for Canada. And I got to wear one of her medals. She won gold and bronze, actually. That was kind of cool. She was, listen, Canada didn't win a lot of golds. I think we got 5 or 6, and 2 of them were won in Livigno. Mikhail Kingsbury, who's French, who is like the king of moguls for Canada, he won 1, and Megan Oldham won 1. So just being up close and holding him, feeling the weight, and celebrating the few Canadian athletes who won gold, that was kind of cool.
That's cool, awesome. Actually. So how was the preparation? How early did you arrive in Livigno?
I got there February 1st, and the opening ceremonies were, February 5th, I think. So it takes a couple of days to get used to the time. And then since we were in such a small town, you just got to you start to develop your little habits. Like, okay, where am I? I ended up eating at the same, I don't know, 5 or 6 places every day because there aren't a lot of options. I did find a sushi place. I know we're in Italy, and I had enough pasta for probably the rest of 2026.
You can never get enough pasta.
I mean, until you eat enough, until you reach your limit, until like here, is this going to be like the 7th day in a row that I either eat pizza or, some, what's the tagliatelle or whatever it's called. Listen, my Italian is clearly terrible.
Hey, listen, you're speaking to a guy who did his master's in Italy. You cannot get enough pasta.
How long did you live there?
I did it online, but I had to go back and forth, right? In Venice. And every time my wife would come with me, man, there's never enough pasta for me.
Well, listen, you're able to control your body regulates your metabolism is obviously on point because I'm seeing you here. You look pretty trim and you likely take your health seriously. For a chubby guy like me, bro, just breathing air, I'm gaining weight. I can gain a pound in like a conversation. By the end of this, I'll be like 245. So just the amount of pasta that I ate, I had to make sure I got my steps in every day. And if not, then I got to make sure to just try to get on like the treadmill or do something active so that I didn't come back, so that I could at least fit in the seats on the airplane on the way home versus one of those cats. Unfortunately, there are some that just have to like take that deep inhale in, just and then sort of like squeeze yourself into the seat and just hold your breath for, if you can, for like 8 hours, which would be entirely uncomfortable.
Hey man, it was fun to watch you. I was watching with my kids every morning before they went to school, and just seeing some of the footage, some of the backdrops when you were reporting, it was incredible.
Thanks.
Very happy
Thanks,
for you, man.
Thanks.
Yeah. Is it different from obviously the day to day, the Olympics, preparing, getting athletes to have conversations with you? How's that like for the person who's interested like me in the the behind the scenes stories?
It is much different. I had 2 roles at the Olympics. I hosted a daily trivia game, and that required, I had to memorize scripts and just deliver them. It took maybe anywhere about an hour every day to shoot these scripts so that they would appear during the gameplay. And then on the days where I would interview an athlete, I would usually just I knew that there were 8 to 10 athletes that I would speak to. So I started working weeks ahead, just learning about their sport and learning about them, because I grew up in Toronto. I currently live in Calgary, but I follow the 4 major sports. I'm like a soccer casual. I like some UFC. I watch a little bit of Premiership. Like it's basketball, hockey, football, baseball. And then, the order of importance flips over the course of the seasons, over the course of the calendar year. Yeah. But so I had to learn so much about, these athletes. So and then while being there, I could lean on, in our office, our content house at CBC in Livigno, there were a couple of people that worked for the COC. And then there were a couple of people that worked for, they're like athlete liaisons, and they knew, they had like encyclopedic knowledge of the athlete. So I could lean on some of those resources as well as my own research, just reading articles and learning about the World Cup standings and the World Cup schedule. So unlike when I worked at TSN or Sportsnet, where we could send interview requests to speak to RJ Barrett of the Toronto Raptors or William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs, we had it set where, Cab, you're going to talk to these 8 athletes. All right, cool. And it turned out I only ended up speaking to 5 of them. One, Cassie Sharp, had an injury. She got injured in half pipe, so then her Olympics were done. Mark McMorris didn't have the Olympics that he was hoping for, so he left early. And then another, Felicia George, ended up interviewing someone in Cortina. So anyway, I ended up doing 5, but we knew ahead of time that these are the athletes that I was going to speak to, versus in working for those previous networks. I just kind of decided, my producer and I would work on like who's coming into town this month, or like what's a big matchup, or who's hot right now, or a Canadian in the let's go talk to Jamal Murray or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, or things like that. Or if it's football, like let's go try to talk to Aaron Rodgers. So we had a little bit more control over who we would speak to. Granted, the PR reps for those teams would have to give us permission. Like, yes, you can fly into Green Bay and have 15 minutes with Aaron Rodgers. But in this case, with the Olympics, we had CBC had an agreement with 10 athletes as a part of a Corona sponsorship, like Corona Cero, and then that's who I ended up speaking to.
You know what, Cabbie? You just mentioned something that reminded me of one of your conversations I heard a few months ago. Actually, you said, "I don't ask for permission; I ask for forgiveness," and that stuck with me. Can you tell me more about about that?
Yeah, well, it's there's so many times you just get a lot of no's, and you have to navigate a lot of no's. And oftentimes, if we asked ahead of time to speak with an athlete, or would this athlete do this, or would this person do that, the answer would be no. So we just beg for forgiveness afterwards. I'll give you an example. I interviewed the cast of Hangover 3 many years ago. Maybe, God, when did that movie come out? 10 years ago? This is an old story. Mm-hmm. So we're in Los Angeles for a junket, and a junket is the actors would either be in a room, and journalists or interviewers would, almost like a car wash, would go station to station interviewing various cast members for this film. They would take their footage home, and they would, either broadcast it on some channel or on their YouTube channel or whatnot. And the actors would end up doing like 30 or 40 interviews in that day. It's a full day, and you get 4 minutes max, so that the interviews just keep going. Like they keep rolling. They just rolling through. You feel like you're in a car wash or like an assembly line. So I'm interviewing Zach Galifianakis, Ed Helms, and Bradley Cooper, the main cast of The Hangover 3.
Wow.
I snuck a keyboard into the room with me. I had like my jacket. Over the keyboard. So I walk in, and then, the actors are just kind of talking amongst themselves, and there's some PR types that are just, staring at a monitor. And it was kind of this big ballroom. So I go over and I start the interview. I also brought them these mullets, because I said, you have sensibilities are kind of Canadian, because you're all sort of funny. Zach Galifianakis looks Canadian. Ed Helms has, I don't know, in some of his humor, he's got the biting sarcasm that's kind of Canadian. Then in Bradley Cooper speaks French. So they put on these mullets, which, again, had I asked, hey, Warner Brothers, is it okay if I bring mullets, like costumes for the guys, and have some fun in the interview? It would have been absolutely no response. So then came the keyboard. I stopped off at a Walmart, at a Costco. No, maybe it was Walmart, Costco, whatever. Bob and stuck it in. So at the end of the interview, I say to Ed Helms, I'm like, Ed, it is known that you improvise a song at the end of The Hangover, which plays in the closing credits. I would love it if you could improvise a song for us in this interview. So I go over, get the keyboard. I'm starting to get hot under the collar, because I know I'm doing something that I'm going to get in crap for. Bring it over, turn it on, put it on Ed's lap. Zach Galifianakis reaches across Bradley Cooper, and he holds it. He kind of stabilizes it. I turn the power on. Zach turns the volume up, and then Ed starts making up this song. He improvises this song. So and Zach was great. They play along. He sings the song. At the end, they take off their mullets. Boy, as soon as I got out of that room, I collect my stuff, and Zach's like, thank you, Cabbie. That was great. Not even 6 steps out of the room, PR comes out. We didn't agree to this. We didn't agree to having these guys play music. This is, you should have let us know beforehand. I just read the riot act. So I know that going in, had I asked permission, no chance. So sometimes you just got to shoot your shot, as they say, and deal with the consequences later. And there were consequences. There was a time where, here's another one. I was going to interview Michael B. Jordan, who was promoting Creed 2 in Toronto. And his personal PR rep was a real shark. Like, she wanted questions submitted. Like you had to, like, if there's anything out of the ordinary, what is it like to do this movie? What is it like? Like just the standard 3 or 4, like the most uninteresting questions.
No surprises.
No, yeah. The actor would just be like faking their way through. I mean, they're actors. They could like pretend that they're engaged, but it's just so boring for them. So I had made, he was on the cover of Vanity Fair. So I had whipped up this like Photoshop of like these things that were in the movie, and I wanted him to react to them in this like this photo spread. I couldn't get past the elevator, bro. They're like, what's in the package? I'm like, oh, it's just a photograph of from a recent Vanity Fair. I mean, I said it more confidently than the way I'm describing it to, but they're like, oh, can we? So then multiple times, different production assistants will come out and they wanted to look at the photo to tell Michael B. Jordan's PR director, like, what do I have planned for this thing? And then I ended up just leaving. I'm like, this isn't worth it. Like, to get 5 minutes, and I know Michael B. Jordan's a big star, but I'm like, it's not worth it for me if I'm just going to go in there and ask cookie cutter questions. Like, the audience gets nothing out of this. So I just left. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to deal with it. So there have been times where the gatekeepers, they built the gates, the walls so tall that I couldn't either dig under the gate or, circumvent, go around, find a pick for the lock to get past the gate. So I was like, all right, bleep this. I'll live to fight another day.
Wow, that's great. But you gave us so many great moments with other personalities. The one that stand out for me is obviously Kobe Bryant, the late great. And, I'd like to thank you for that. Cause that's exactly. It's incredible. You know what, gives you the confidence to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to try this with this person. Cause there's energy. You're always on 100, like the kids say. Thanks. I'm sure sometimes you meet some of these personalities who may not be at that same match your energy level, but yet, from what I've seen, you're always able to crack the code.
Well, thank you. It's not easy. What gives me the confidence? Just knowing that I only have one shot. Really, there are no redos. There's a small amount of time that you have. Whether sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's 5. Also, it's not live, so I can make mistakes or I can fumble some questions. It will be saved in the edit. So that is a huge safety net for me. Mm-hmm. And when with Kobe, the first time I saw him, I was like, man, this is Kobe Bryant. I just had to kind of psych myself up. And before I conduct interviews, I usually take a moment for myself and I repeat a mantra, which I say to myself, just be excellent. Just be excellent. Just be excellent. I say that 40 or 50 times. And
you speak it into existence.
I do. And it kind of centers me. I also have the confidence, like, listen, I only have 4 minutes. These are the 5 questions that I've prepared. I have to know them as though I'm saying them like they're coming out of my brain for the first time, because there's so little time, so little room for error. And also I got to allow for a little bit of ad-libbing, whether it's from the athlete or whether it's from myself. And generally, because we get to edit the interviews later, then I know I can put some sauce and some sizzle on it in the edit suite.
That's awesome. Like I said earlier, I was telling my wife about you, and I was like, you know what? You can't teach what this guy is doing. You can't fake it. You can't teach it. So what do you tell the person, the woman, the man who's teaching, who's learning journalism right now, and who sees you is like, hey, how can I be myself and, try to interview these personalities that I love, admire, right? And yet stay myself instead of asking those same regular questions that we get, most times.
Well, it takes some work on the front end. So I often, and this is much easier said than done, is like you try to be clever and try to separate yourself from your peers. And it's, if you're there just to get information from the person and you need to know the who, what, where, why, and hows, then you have to ask those questions like, what happened on January 30th? And then what happened next? And who was there? Like, if you're getting particulars, trying to fill in the blanks of a story, I understand that. I've been lucky where I try to entertain first and inform second. So I'm just going into, I almost treat the person like a friend or someone who I want to be my friend and have a good time, because I believe in the classic escapism type of entertainment. It's goofy, it's fun, it's lighthearted. Take a break. People's lives are hard and people are going through stuff. And if I can provide 30 seconds or 90 seconds of something that takes their mind off of a test, a tough relationship, something going really crappy at work, or someone's at a job where it sucks, or they're nursing a child with a cold, or I don't know. I hope that the stuff that I create can help at least provide some modicum of relief. So going in thinking of entertaining first and informing second is easier. Now, I have colleagues or peers that write great feature stories, and they have to give sort of an unvarnished look at their subjects, or they have to tear down someone's mythology. Like, that is hard. I'm there for the good times, and so that's it gives me a little bit more leeway. But what I would advise to people, someone who might watch this and look for a little nuggets is, be yourself. If you're a nerd, let me give you an example. I was nerding out about God, the first thing that comes to mind is like the only time I interviewed Kendrick Lamar, he was wearing these Nike Air Max 1s that are red on red that he got in Japan. I was like, of course you bought those in Japan. Cause you're like, with men, they're like, yo, where'd you get those kicks? Like, where'd you get those? It's like a thing. But no, but even if you're into Star Wars, one of my co-hosts on this podcast that I host called Off the Roster, there's a pitcher named Cody Ponce who just joined the Toronto Blue Jays pitching staff. This dude has Star Wars tattoos on his body. So like, if you're into Star Wars, you and Cody Ponce can have a 1 hour conversation about super nerdy, Star Wars fanfic or whatever. And that's fine. Like that will be interesting to someone. If not just the both of you, somebody watching will be like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. Or, oh, I had no idea the source material for this character, Darth Vader, is, fill in the blank. I have no idea. But, I always try to connect with the person as a human being. So one of my hacks before an interview is like, have you seen this movie? Or have you heard this person's latest record or whatever? And immediately that'll tell me like, oh yeah, I saw Avatar 3 last week. Then we could just talk about Avatar for 45 seconds as the camera guy is positioning the athlete's microphone. And you just need a little bit of small talk before you get into the thing. Yeah. Listen, these conversations are many times transactional. Like the example I gave you earlier about the movie junket. The transaction is I get access to stars. They tell me about the movie and I take that footage and I show it to the audience. That is the transaction. But in some of the interviews that I do, I want the transaction to be, I don't want it to feel as transactional as it is. And I want the byproduct to be, hey, this athlete is a cool human. This person is someone that you can watch a game with, or you want to go to a game with, or you can, talk about, Stranger Things season 2 and why the show fell off in season 3, but then was saved in season 5, or whatever the thing is. Maybe they're a Sopranos fan, or maybe they watch Game of Thrones, or maybe it was The Wire. But trying to connect on a human level is something that I always aspire to do in these interviews.
Man, I love it. I certainly felt the energy over the years. I'll tell you a little story. I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, obviously you would remember, years ago, I think it was it? I won't name the network, but when there were changes in the network, I remember it's like, oh man, what's up with Cabbie, man? Where's Cabbie? And I ran into owners of that network, and I expressed myself. I was like, hey, you guys made some changes, but Cabbie was a mistake. And they looked at me, oh my goodness. And I remember emailing you, and you said that? I don't know if you remember, but that was years ago.
Okay, so that must have been when I left The Score, right?
It was The Score. It was The Score.
And I went to TSN?
That's right. I was like, man. Okay. that's my guy. Where is he? You know what I mean?
Thanks.
So that was hilarious. But it's all, it's a business. Things happen, right?
Oh yeah, and in that case, I left. Like it wasn't a bad.
I know it wasn't a bad, but I was like, man, we want him there.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So listen, I know you're a father. I like to bring it back to day to day for the average person. You're a father of two, correct?
Correct. 2 little boys. Yeah.
That's amazing. If the dad you are today could sit down with a younger Cabbie, just stepping into the industry, what advice would you give the younger Cabbie?
Always be curious. Mm-hmm. Try not to let the world beat you down. Mm-hmm. And the enthusiasm, remember the enthusiasm you have at the start and try to hold on to that over the course of your journey. Mm. I think that's important. I mean, life is tough. Life's hard.
Yeah.
I've dealt with a lot of rejection. I'm sure people watching this have in various forms.
Yeah.
Work, personal, interrelationships or interpersonal relationships, colleagues or romantic partners or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think would say that now as a dad, I don't, which has been tough for me. I don't know how much, I guess through the eyes of my kids I have a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So they're seeing the world like this.
Oh man, you're going through it.
Bright eyes, and they're very curious and they're very playful. Like if you can harness some of that energy and hang on to it, in the days where, to use a baseball analogy, like when the Toronto Blue Jays are playing, I don't know, the Oakland Athletics, a team that is struggling, and it's the middle of the summer, and there are 7,000 people in the stadium watching you. Just like remember, like this is still the dream, and the dream isn't always highlights. The dream isn't always holding, trophies above your head and hearing the admiration from the fans. The dream has peaks and valleys, but it's still the dream. So you have to kind of remember that. And again, this is all easier said than done because some days you don't even want to get out of bed. Or some days you're just like, I don't have it. They say like the best workout to do is the one that you didn't want to do. Like the best workout to complete. And you feel so much better after that. And sometimes when you're going through hard periods, if you can grind your way through to see the other side, it feels like very rewarding.
Wow. Well, in your line of work, it's interesting because you meet champions, you meet, go-getters. Do you get inspired by, some of their the way they perform, or the way the success they have? How does that translate into your personal space or life?
Their excellence in their craft is unattainable for regular people because their level of discipline is otherworldly. And you have to have a level of discipline and talent and ethic in order to rise to those heights. The most competitive people on earth are professional athletes. So absorbing some of that just through osmosis or being around them or watching, there was a time where, first time I really felt this, a producer and I were watching Dirk Nowitzki of the Dallas Mavericks. They're playing in Toronto. We're in the practice court. Inside, it was the Air Canada Center. We're watching Dirk Nowitzki drop, I think hit 40 straight 3-pointers, and he's going around the arc, just 5 balls at a time. This guy couldn't miss, Ray.
Couldn't miss.
Like, this is unbelievable. Like, obviously someone of Dirk's stature has shot literally hundreds of thousands or shot the basketball hundreds of thousands of times.
Yeah.
And this is just muscle memory, but over so much deliberate and intentional repetition to master the craft. Mastery. I heard it recently. It was the documentary where I think it's Alex Honnold. I think that's the free climber, and he was climbing a building in Taipei. And I believe in the pre-interview, he was talking about the mastery of his craft. And I'm like, that is relatable to me as someone who's just like an everyday person, but the craft of interviewing and trying to create these entertaining moments and through listening and being able to improv quickly and coming in with a fun idea or creating some kind of game, like mastering all those technical aspects of it and creative aspects, like that's my pursuit. That has been my pursuit. So that's something that's attainable in my line of work. If I was a carpenter, or if I was an engineer and I was, who are both problem solvers, engineers, whether it's through bridges or products that they create, and carpenters are like, all right, we have this, need to build this house or build this 6-story building, and we have, we're on this piece of land which has this grade, this kind of grade, or 30-degree grade on the slope. So you have to build the house around that accordingly. All these factors, they're problem solvers, but mastery of their crafts are attainable. So that is something that isn't always front of mind, but something I've had at the back of my mind. And when I'm rehearsing my questions or I'm in my brainstorm, I'm at the library, I'm like, okay, what can I get away with? What has this athlete not done before? What is this person willing to do? And I'll go to like my North Stars, which are Conan O'Brien, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, where they have 8 or 10 minutes and their writers and them themselves come up with like these great games, these great moments. Like, how can I recreate something like that in the 5 minutes that I'll have with Connor McDavid? What can I bring into this conversation that'll push him beyond his comfort, like the limits of his comfort, and also bring something new for the audience to experience with him. So that's what I chase. It's like mastery of the craft.
Mastering the craft sounds like a title of a book you haven't written yet.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe like mastering the craft for dummies, because that's about as intellectual as I get.
Hey, no. All jokes aside, I think that would be great. I would definitely be interested in that. Obviously, watching your career over the years, it's been inspiring. But let me ask you this: when it's all said and done, what do you want people to remember about what you brought to the industry?
That I was a game changer. I want them to recognize the work as legendary, and I want them to say, like, that dude changed the way that interviews were done in sports. That dude changed the way that we see athletes. So like, we see them as humans now. In 2026, with the advent of social media, where it's Instagram and TikTok, like, you see much more of the athletes' personalities. But there was a time where you can only experience that on television. And I was very lucky in my career to be one of these conduits, one of these people that would ask about sneakers or phones or dating or, stuff they would have on the wall, posters that they had on the walls in their bedroom homes, or, jokes or musical tastes and just things outside of what's on the box score, or what strategies on the whiteboard in the locker room or dressing room. So that's how I hope to be viewed once my career is over.
Hey, Cabbie, I thank you for your time. This is a great way to end our conversation. I'd like to end.
Thanks, Ray.
Hey, thank you. I end my conversations with this. We learn today and we lead tomorrow. So thanks a lot for all the gems that you dropped for me today.
My pleasure, bro. Thank you.